What's going on? We're going to take a little road trip this morning out to Pure Seed Testing. We're going to meet with Dr. Melodee Fraser out there, and she's going to tell us a little bit about what they have going on out there with the testing of the new varieties. Kevin Sharp from Southern Seeds is going to meet us out there, and Greg, who was in, he's like the regional sales manager of Pure Seed. So we're going to find out a lot about grass seed today and different varieties and torture testing and meet Dr. Fraser. So come along. What's going on today, guys? I'm out here at Pure Seed Testing East with Dr. Melodee Fraser. Say hi, Dr. Fraser.
Hello.
We're standing apart. I mean, there's plenty of grass disease out here, but we don't want to get our corona disease on each other. But this is the gray leaf spot testing plots. You can see some of them do well. Hi, guys. Introduce yourself, guys.
Hey, Greg Fryermuth. Kevin Sharp, Southern Seeds.
You know Kevin. But anyway, what they do is each of these little square plots, let's see if we can find one that's standing out alone. That's planted in a single variety of seed. And these are experimental varieties that are going through the paces to come to market. And Dr. Fraser will tell you a little bit more about how that works out. But as you can see, some of these plots didn't hold up at all. And they torture test this. They don't treat it with fungicides. They just let gray leaf spot do what it does to them. And you can see some of them, it doesn't do what it does very much on them. So this could be your next, great genetic grass seed coming out, but it's still in experimental phases. So tell us a little bit about what we're looking at here, Dr. Fraser.
All right, so we're looking at tall fescues. This is a tall fescue trial that we seeded last fall. So this is the first summer for this trial, the only summer now. So with our tall fescues, what we do is we try to get as much disease on them as possible so that we can pick out the ones that don't get sick. So like Paul said, it's a torture test. And in this trial in particular, earlier in the summer, we had quite a lot of brown patch in here. So we were able to make note of the varieties that held up the best for brown patch resistance. And then the gray leaf spot came in and we just let it blow up. So gray leaf spot's a spore-borne disease. So up here where we're getting a lot of pressure, we just let the spore load continue to build up, and almost everything gets sick. Almost every plot in here had some damage. Most of them had severe damage, but we do have a few that held up very well. Some of these right down here, you can see that they don't have very much disease. And so what we do then is that we select plants from those, and we use them in our breeding program to go to the next cycle. So we'll take plants from these best plots, combine them together, and then next summer we'll harvest seed from those plots, from those plants, and then we'll plant plots like this again, and we'll see if that resistance holds up. So we're looking for genetic resistance. This is a disease that is becoming more and more widespread and more troublesome for us in tall fescue use in our region. And so we really want to have genetic resistance to this disease to help control it and to help keep it from destroying this much tall fescue in lawns and sod farms.
Yeah. I feel like from a treatment standpoint, I'm much more successful treating chemically and preventing brown patch, rhizoctonia, but not so much gray leaf spot. And so, stronger genetics against gray leaf spot is I think gray leaf spot is what gets a wide majority of the fescue in this area. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. It's much more, when it gets this bad, it's much more devastating. I mean, this turf of course is not going to recover from this damage. So if this was my lawn, or if this was my sod farm, and it blew up this bad, I would have to reseed it because it's not going to recover. But the plots that are good here, I mean, there's some plots in here that look like they didn't even have a lesion, a gray leaf spot. So that's very exciting for us because that's absolutely genetic resistance. All the plots in here maintain the same. The only difference is we see our genetics. So we feel, very comfortable that we do have genetic resistance. But the thing is, you know, can we put that all together and then continue? It's a spore-borne disease, so there's genetic variation in the fungus and the pathogen too, so we've got to keep working all the time to try to stay ahead of that.
Right. And I mean, that's the idea and the problem with these kind of things, because I mean, you could have a seed like she's got here that looks pretty much like it's going to be gray leaf spot resistant, but it might just be resistant to the particular spore that was out this year. And then again, it looks great, but then again, it might not be as great on color as another one, or drought resistance, or brown patch resistance. So there's not a perfect one that's perfect color resistance to everything. So I mean, that's why the blends, for one, and two, that's why they're going to keep testing it for other things to see, you know, how it does. But I mean, just on the face of it, looking at that, you would say, well, geez, all this other grass blew up and that's alive. Let's put that in a sack and go to market. We're good. But
right?
that's not really how it works, right?
That's right. There's a lot of different things we have to look at, you know, in turf, and then they have to be good seed yielders too. So so there's a lot of things to look at. But everything, you know, like you said, the gray leaf spot resistance is just one thing, you know, but that turf quality looks pretty good. And so, you know, we evaluate them under a lot of different conditions in different places, you know, so we can, you know, they have to perform well other places besides here before it's something that becomes commercially available that we can put in a sack, as you say. So anyway, so that, yeah, it's a lot of work, and none of them are perfect, or if they were, I wouldn't have a job for sure.
Sure.
So.
Oh, but we've got Kevin's blend over here on the border. Let's go take a look at that, the triple threat.
Yeah, you can really see the line.
Yeah, you can. I mean, keep in mind that this is untreated with any kind of fungicide. It's been run with high fertility, mowed a little lower than it wanted to be, just to, I'm holding my thing sideways here, just to, what's the word I'm looking for when I say to push, to make the disease want to get into the plant.
We try to favor the pathogen instead of the grass. Right.
But you can see we cross over in here, and this is triple threat plus, like I said, untreated and primed to get more gray leaf spot into it, and it looks like it held up pretty nice.
It did.
Awesome.
Held up real well.
All right, let's go look at some other stuff.
Okay.
All right, so the other side over there is where the untreated triple threat was, and this is the test varieties that are experimental now. And this is triple threat that's been sprayed with fungicides over the summer. See any complaints there? That's strong.
It's beautiful.
Now we're out here, and this is fine fescue actually. This surprises me because this was put under the same torture test as the tall fescue for gray leaf spot and drought resistance. And well, I guess you water this, but I mean, still it's out in the open sun, people, and it's fine fescue. And it's a lot of it's still here.
Yeah.
I'm very surprised about this. Tell us a little bit about this fine fescue and why it's not as blown up as the tall fescue over there.
Yeah, so our fine fescues, you know, fine fescues are more adapted to low maintenance. I see them a lot in old turf areas here. Old turf areas like cemeteries, under trees. They're better adapted for shade. They like shade better than being here in the full sun. But we plant them here so we can pick out the ones that seem like they would have the best heat tolerance. Typically, there's several species of fine fescues. They have real bristle-like, kind of waxy leaves. And there's several species of them. There's hard fescues, chewing fescues, creeping fescues. There's some that are called blue or sheep fescues or blue hards. And the ones that do the best here, typically at the research farm, are the chewing fescues and the hard fescues. They seem like they hold up the best here for us. The creeping fescues we like because they have some rhizomes, but they seem to get hurt more in the summertime here. So we've done a lot of selection work trying to improve creeping fescues in this environment. We usually don't see the fine fescues hold up quite this well through our summers, maybe because we've had a lot of rain here. I don't know. They do get some diseases here. Most years I can't tell any one thing that's causing the damage on them. Some years I think it's disease, some years I think that it's insects, some years I just don't know, maybe it's the heat. But we do see gray leaf spots sometimes on fine fescues. I mean, I have seen symptoms on it. I've never here seen it be very devastating to the fine fescues. The gray leaf spot in general is a pretty host specific. Different races of the fungus attack different hosts. So while our tall fescue's blown up with gray leaf spot just down the field here from the fine fescues, that doesn't mean that the same fungus
It's over there, trust me.
not necessarily the same host would then infect the fine fescues. You know, it might be a different race of gray leaf spot that would have to come in and do that. Same with the ryegrass. We get a lot of gray leaf spot on perennial ryegrass here. It's the same kind of thing. Might see one trial blown up in one part of the field and the other one not so much because it's a different race of the fungus attacking a different host. So it's pretty host specific. So
Makes
Fun
it hard
gyre,
to
interesting
defend
things.
against too, doesn't it?
Yes.
I mean, when you, gosh,
it's interesting.
stuff's getting complicated. I think I'm gonna
Yeah.
go work somewhere else.
But the fine fescues in general are great in our area for low maintenance areas and for shady areas. You know, they really, as long as they're in areas where they don't get a lot of traffic and if they're not overmanaged, they can do really well in some areas here.
I was impressed I was surprised to see this.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right, well, we'll go see what's next.
All right.
All right, and here's another fescue trial that's been treated. There's a perennial plant, but they're not spraying weeds out here. But we're looking at tall fescue. See what that plot is right there? That's Kentucky 31. Is that another Kentucky 31 variety there too, probably? Woo! Don't buy junk seed. This is their bluegrass test plot, and you can see how the different strains just have different color. There's a lot of different bluegrasses, and tell us a little bit. Well, I got you all sideways here.
That's okay.
I'm not very good at this. Tell us a little bit about bluegrass and how you feel about it in this part of the world. My buddy Chris Elms wanted me to ask you, did you think bluegrass could take over fescue if it's put together in a seeding
Yeah,
plot?
that's a good question, really. I think bluegrass is great for our area. Most commonly, the place we see it is added with tall fescue. So usually we'll see blends that have 10% or less by weight of Kentucky bluegrass seed in with tall fescue, because the bluegrass seeds are a lot smaller.
But so there's still a lot more seeds in
Right,
that
right. They're a
10%,
lot
so a lot
smaller.
more potential plants.
Exactly. So that's done by weight. So it depends on where you plant it. Bluegrass likes fertile soils. It likes well-drained soils, but it likes nitrogen. And so it depends on how the turf is managed. So if we planted a turf plot here in our tall fescue trial that had some bluegrass in with it, the bluegrass would probably take over because we maintain those tall fescue trials under high fertility because we're trying to encourage disease. So the bluegrass really likes that. So it really depends on where it's planted. And sometimes, like if you planted a home lawn with a mixture that had some tall fescue with some bluegrass in it, there might be places in that lawn where the bluegrass might persist better because of how the soil is or how it's managed. You know, areas that might have higher fertility in that lawn, the bluegrass might do better and persist better. But that's okay. I mean, and in the lawn as a whole, if it's managed under high fertility and frequent irrigation, the bluegrass might persist better than tall fescue. That's okay. A bluegrass lawn looks great.
Yeah, it does.
So, in my mind, in a lawn, if bluegrass outcompetes tall fescue, who cares?
Yeah,
You know, 'cause your
you still won.
Right, your lawn's still gonna look good. So,
Exactly.
so there's some advantages of having bluegrass in there. You know, bluegrass in general has finer texture than tall fescue does. So if you have some bluegrass plants in there, it might fill in the gaps between the tall fescue leaves and give you higher turf density. But also bluegrass has rhizomes. And so if you add bluegrass to the turf, you're adding rhizomes to the turf, because tall fescue for the most part doesn't have more than just short rhizomes. And so that can help with drought persistence under prolonged drought stress, because if there's rhizomes underground, the turf goes dormant because of drought, then those rhizomes can make new shoots so that the bluegrass can recover. So there's some good reasons to have it in there, and it definitely adds something to the mix. If you're gonna go bluegrass alone, it does take a little longer to establish from seed than tall fescue, so you have to be more diligent with your irrigation at establishment, and also because it's a little slower, it gives more opportunity for broadleaf weeds to come in there, so you might have to add or apply a broadleaf herbicide that you might not have to apply to tall fescue because it could outcompete those weeds. So there's pluses and minuses to both. The bluegrass is not blown up with gray leaf spot and dollar spot, but it gets its own share of diseases. So none of them are perfect, so that's why sometimes it's just good to plant a mixture.
Yeah. And again, you can see some of the different plots have different varieties, didn't do as well, but these were treated. Well, this was treated this year, correct? Like you were saying, 'cause you're just establishing it.
Right, establishment year, so we did treat for summer patch. We used a preventative for summer patch, so we didn't get that disease this year. So overall, these bluegrasses held up really well this summer.
And it's very evident the color differences in the different varieties. And are any of these commercially available varieties?
A lot of them. A lot of them are commercially available and a lot of experimentals. So usually here in our trials, we're looking for ones that persist through our hot summers. And a lot of them have very good heat tolerance and can really hold up well in the heat. And like I said, they don't get the devastating brown patch or gray leaf spot, but they will get summer patch. So, and there's certain places on the farm. We have another bluegrass trial on the farm that just completely blew up with summer patch, which is interesting because you could pick out ones that are resistant, you know, have genetic resistance. So next summer we'll let the summer patch blow up here in this trial. But we wanted to let the plots establish the first year. And
I wonder why bluegrass isn't more popular. And I mean, it's always had a reputation in this part of the world, you know, just from what you hear people say, is that it's really thirsty and that it doesn't hold up well under summer heat. But I'm seeing a different thing here.
They hold up real well here, and we can mow them shorter than we do the tall fescues for sure.
This is just a gorgeous turf. Speaking of rhizomes, you hear a lot about rhizomatous tall fescue. What's your thoughts on rhizomatous tall fescue?
Well, I'll tell you, we, you know, at our field days, a lot of times, I have a lot of questions sometimes about rhizomatous tall fescues. And so I always ask, because our field days, you know, of course, are well attended by turf managers from all over the place, managing all kinds of turfs. So I always ask them, could you please raise your hand if you've ever seen or ever managed a tall fescue turf that is highly rhizomatous? And no one has ever told me that they have. So, and I've never seen a highly rhizomatous tall fescue turf. So I just say, you know, a lot of tall fescue varieties have short rhizomes, you know, but I don't know how much agronomic value there is to that. And really, we've had some experimentals that have more rhizomes than others that we've looked at in our program, but their disease resistance is not as good. So for me, you know, the rhizomes are only valuable if we get some kind of good agronomic value from them.
I'm losing.
And the value that we get from having a few rhizomes in tall fescue is not nearly as high as having brown patch or gray leaf spot resistance.
So the way to have a good rhizomatous tall fescue is to pick some good fescue variety to start with and then run some bluegrass into it.
Add a little bluegrass. Then you know you're going to get rhizomes. Right.
Well, this looks fantastic. All right, well, let's see what the next thing is. This is Bermuda seed test plots. Seeded Bermuda has come a long darn way, I'm telling you. These look great, and I think some of you probably seen the videos I got at home with the Monaco I seeded in my yard, but I have the Monaco right next to areas that were sodded in 419, and I'd say the Monaco has a better appearance even than the sodded 419, but it's so close you can't tell the difference. But I can't really pick one of these out from the other so much, but they don't look like, you know, wiregrass in grandma's yard for sure. These are tight, nice looking turfs, and they're really not, I mean, y'all really don't do a lot to these, do you? As far, you don't run a growth regulator or anything like that, just feeding them?
We mow these, through the summer they've been mowed at a ½ inch, so but really we're just working on trying to make improvements in density, maintaining that high density under close mowing, shorter internodes, finer leaf texture, just improving turf characteristics, but still be able to propagate by seed. That's the main thing, is that we want to have Bermuda grasses, good turf type Bermuda grasses we can propagate by seed, because seed, it's easy to make repairs, it's easy to store, it's easy for establishment, you know, it's easy for shipping, you know, so we want seed propagation. So as well as our turf quality, you know, we got to have good seed yield too. So there's a lot to work on Bermuda grass, but all of these, like you said, they all look good today.
They do look good.
You know, we have, there are really good choices in seeded Bermuda grass varieties, improved types for turf, you know, for lawns and sports fields and golf courses too.
Yeah, that's great looking. These are seeded varieties too. That's awesome. All right, now this is impressive. This is Paspalum vagina, what is seashore paspalum? That's what you call it. From seed. Had no idea this was established from seed to start with. I've never seen it in real life. We got plenty of Paspalum notatum here, the old Bahia grass. This is the furthest thing from Bahia grass I've ever seen in my life. This is gorgeous. But they're doing golf courses and, what did they say, some soccer fields, things like that, Dr. Fraser? That's impressive turf right there, but really dense, just beautiful. But I'll show you a close-up of it. But highly salt tolerant. So a lot of these golf courses, once they get established, can irrigate, because a lot of golf courses are near the beach, can irrigate with their affluent water or whatever and kill their weeds at the same time. Tell me about your weed control on this here, Dr. Fraser.
Yeah, here at the research farm. So if we have weeds in the paspalums, we put table salt on them. So we just put table salt in the drop spreader. We put down about 20 pounds of salt per 1,000 square feet, and that takes out the weeds, and the paspalum doesn't mind at all. Doesn't mind. It likes it.
Now that's salt tolerant.
Yeah.
But man, that stuff's gorgeous.
One thing about paspalums, it doesn't require as much nitrogen as Bermuda grass does. So it's a lower fertility grass for the most part in the summertime.
Man, this is gorgeous. I mean, this is kind of out of reason for home lawns and such, I would assume, but
it's interesting.
A playing surface, golf course. I like it. That's good looking turf. Let's get a close up. Yeah. Man, that is gorgeous. You got different varieties. And again, like in the Bermuda over there this morning, they're all looking pretty strong. Very little difference between any of them. I've got some feet in it. All right. Well, I appreciate you having us out here, and Kevin coming out this morning too. But are there any varieties that you think you've gone as far as you can developing genetically? Like, are we maxed out on Bermuda grass? Are we maxed out on centipede?
No.
Do you do anything with centipede here?
No, we don't do anything with centipede
Good
grass
idea.
here, We collected a few, but they flower kind of late. They don't make too much seed here at the research farm. So no, I don't think we're maxed out on anything. We've always got, new challenges. We've always got, we're fortunate that a lot of species we work with, there's a lot of variation, so we got opportunities to make improvements. And we always have new pests. We always have new challenges. We have a lot of projects. It's fun that we get to work with a lot of species. That's really cool to us as plant breeders. But no matter what our projects are, no matter what species we're working on, all those projects, the number one goal is to try to decrease the inputs that the manager has to put in the turf. Whether we're working on, low growth habit to decrease mowing, darker green to decrease fertilizer, or working so much on disease resistance and drought tolerance like we do to decrease having to put the water and having to put pesticides on there. So we're not ever going to run out of jobs to do. None of them are perfect, especially here in the transition zone.
As much as I like saving the world, that's good for your environment, but I'm more interested that that's good for your pocketbook, is that you don't have to spend the money on those inputs. But it's great that Pure Seed puts the time and the effort into having this research done out here by you, and it just kind of makes me feel better as a customer to know that they have, put all this in to my bag of grass seed, that makes it where I don't have to second guess myself, am I doing the right thing by going out with this particular product, because somebody as smart as Dr. Fraser and her team out here have already gone through the paces with it. So I appreciate that from y'all.
Thank you. We appreciate that too.
All right. Well, I guess I got to go to Southern Seeds and get some more seed from Kevin. But anyway, well, I appreciate Dr. Fraser having us out here, and y'all shoot me the questions on the whole comment section down there, and I'll try to answer them. Or maybe if I can't, I'll email Dr. Fraser or something with them. I've returned home now. I just got my Pure Sport perennial rye out on my Bermuda here for my winter cover, and I'm anxiously awaiting to see what that looks like when it comes up. But I appreciate them so much for having me out there today and being able to share it with everybody on YouTube. That's some pretty interesting stuff they got going on out there. It's just really neat to see all the work that they put into making sure that, you know, they're developing the best seed and grass cultivars there, and then they pass that on to us to have a really good product in the end that we can be confident in. So I appreciate everybody watching, and I hope you learned something from it. It's a really neat experience getting to go out there today. The field day out there I really love, and through this we got our own personal field day tour with Dr. Fraser, and we got to talk with Kevin and Greg and get some of their knowledge too. So it was just great, a great experience. I'm working on them now. That fescue variety that was holding up to the gray leaf spot the best, I want them to call that Outlaw. Pure Outlaw, that would be the name for it. But anyway, I'm joking. But just showing all that goes into the research and all that they put into it, it just makes me very confident knowing that I'm buying a good product from these guys, and I appreciate that. I really do. But anyway, that's about all I got for today, and I appreciate y'all for watching and continuing to watch and comment and all that. It means a lot to me. Thanks, guys.